Liberals are some of the easiest to manipulate people on the planet, dude.
What the? What do you mean, Hasan? Okay.
Now you're starting to understand, Dean. Now you're starting to get it.
I hate liberals, dude. I hate them. I hate them so viciously.
Oh man, come on.
Are you getting it now, Dean? Is it starting to make sense?
Liberals are a burden on this planet, dude.
Bad.
Yeah, bro.
Come on.
It's bad. It's bad, Dean.
I'm not a burden on this planet. Come on.
It's bad. It's not good, Dean.
Liberals are the most like scummy, vile.
Jesus Christ.
There was an interesting development with Hasan recently, where I think what happened was he caught wind of the fact that this is Dean Withers. He's like a young Zoomer lib. He caught wind of the fact that Dean was going to watch the content Nuke. And then I think Hasan infiltrated like a TikTok space, whatever you call them, and was having a conversation with them about like communism. I haven't seen this yet.
Are you like a socialist that like prioritizes cooperatives or like state or like command control?
Well, I have a cooperative, but on top of that, no, I do believe in state control. I mean, I think we already have state control in general in America as well. It's just that the incentive structure revolves around
We have state control over the economy in the United States. Is that what he's saying?
subsidies to mega corporations, and instead of the state executing any sort of centralized planning with like a multiple decade policy in mind, we're just kind of operating on quarterly returns. Like we're just trying to maximize corporate profit. So there is still a level of state control. There's no true libertarian enterprise in this country or in any country really. Of course, there has to be state control to a certain degree in order to maintain prices.
There's a difference between like government subsidies, you know, and state control over the economy. Like the idea that we would conflate the sort of regulation and involvement that the United States government has in the free markets, that we would conflate that with like Maoist China is pretty fucking ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that there isn't like no state control, but like, are you arguing that like the predominant factor of the economy would be the state control or like the cooperative control? Like, are you like someone who would believe that there should be some cooperatives based on markets, or just eradicate markets entirely?
I like cooperatives, and I think that there is a middle ground with like some market solutions, while still making sure that the state has the public best interest in mind in terms of creating commodities.
Okay, and then here'd be my question.
He's basically describing like social democrats there, right? Like a social democracy.
Question is what?
He's like talking about Denmark, right? But he goes way further than the Nordic model. Like he advocates for much more heavy-handed state control over economies than Denmark. He's for sure hiding his power level here. Yeah.
Would you then like mandate there either as cooperatives or it's state control? Like if you had the ability to control that?
If I had the ability to control it, would I mandate every single corporation, every single corporate structure to be a cooperative structure?
Or like it would be state controlled, like nationalized?
Yeah. I think that the government should provide, at least in the interim, the government should provide basic necessities like shelter.
In the interim to what? In the interim to what? When you say interim, that like implies that he's a communist, right? Like he's going for the communist utopia, right? The interim would be the transitionary phase, right?
Shelter and become a market competitor, which would be unfair for the market, certainly, with the sole purpose of eventually eradicating certain necessary commodities from the private structure. You can have personal property all day, every day, of course, and even luxury goods or whatever kind of accommodations that you desire. But ultimately, it's more so rent seeking that I'm against. It's more so private property that I think is not good and creates is at the heart of all of this inequality. But this is stuff that's never going to happen in my lifetime. I don't think. I'm simply.
You can own luxury goods like a Lamborghini or a $2,000 shirt that you wear to Coachella, but you can't own a home? What's the logic there?
Trying to move in the direction, at least in the short term, in the direction of modest reforms that genuinely improve people's lives.
So then my thoughts are that like it sounds like your goals are you want to achieve this in the future, but your thoughts are that you were not even close or even at that point at all entirely. So pragmatically, you're just going to end up being like a social democrat.
The way, I mean, yeah, what I advocate for, my most radical perspectives don't come from domestic policy. It's usually my anti-imperialist positions that cause a lot of ire in, especially in the minds of a lot of Americans. But yeah, and as far as domestic policy goes, yeah, I mean, I'm an advocate for nationalized healthcare structure. I'm an advocate for socialized medicine in general, public housing in general. But these are, I would say, relatively modest reforms that exist in one way, shape, or form in other social democracies in Europe.
I mean, it's pretty outrageous to say that if we switch to a government subsidized healthcare, like fully government subsidized healthcare, and government provided housing to eliminate homelessness, that is not a marginal difference. I don't know where he got the, why would you say marginal? That would be a marginal reform.
Even though public housing in general, but these are, I would say, relatively modest reforms that exist in one way, shape, or form in other social democracies.
It would be, I mean, not that I'm opposed to such policies, but that would be massive reform. That would not be a modest reform.
In Europe, even though they are running into the same problems with the parasitic nature of capital in terms of, social democracies basically clawing back all of these social safety nets year over year with austerity measures, with the inevitable goal of privatization. And that is part of the reason why I think that, I'm, I guess, a little bit more radical in the long term with what I believe. But yes, in the short term, I advocate mostly for modest social democratic proposals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean,
what he advocates for is not modest. I don't know. I don't understand why he would use that word, because he would consider himself a radical.
It practically, in terms of domestic policy, sounds like we're like practically on like the same side. And whatnot. Obviously, like that's why like we pretty much agree in terms of all like the policies and the people that we support and stuff. But I feel like a lot of leftists get really focused on like everyone agreeing on like those like sort of, I don't want to call them fringe economically related issues, but they're like it's really definitions and stuff. It's not like we don't
for the most part
disagree. We get really focused on like, oh, we have that type of disagreement when we're in reality arguing, at least in the time period, for the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the reasons for why I advocate for these things might be a little different than yours, aside from like genuinely improving people's lives. And this is another thing that I'm not like secretive about, but I see a noticeable lack of class consciousness in the American working class in general. There is tremendous class consciousness for capital owners, whether they even recognize it or not, and they don't even need to have class consciousness because the system is structured to benefit their needs regardless, and to continue their position as generating engaging in capital accumulation. The entire system is designed in that way, but the reasons as to why I think it's important to be able to do this is because I want labor unions and labor militancy to at least exist in this country, so that there is a valid mechanism of pushback.
What is that noise? Is somebody playing an instrument in the background?
Politicians on the Republican side of the spectrum, certainly, but even on the Democratic side as well, because
who the is that? I'm gonna lose my mind. Somebody's hitting a cowbell.
I think without, like, there's never been a moment throughout American history or history at all where concessions were given to the working class, whether it be the fucking weekends or whether it be paid leave or any of those things, or the abolition of child labor, without real labor militancy. That has simply never happened. And the same goes for social struggles as well. Same goes for civil rights. Like, militancy is an absolute necessity. And
I think the onus would be on Hasan right now to articulate why his ultimate goal of a stateless, moneyless society would be better suited to address these issues than like a social democracy, like just a liberal democracy, but with really strong social safety nets. So far, I have not heard him even like try to articulate why the former would be preferred in that spot.
I see the American working class as completely removed from that conversation, where they just understandably see themselves as powerless in this structure. And I think that breeds resentment, hostility, and it creates, paired up with the economic volatility that many Americans experience, that creates a perfect ground for right-wing reactionary fascist movements to grow. And that's what we're seeing in America.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with that. So I'm not as educated on economics as Parker is, but what I will say is seemingly that's compatible with like a social democrat model to like advocate for more class consciousness, to like get more social reform.
Mm-hmm. He's asking the right questions
for individuals and like the low middle class, and create economic policy in which centers the average citizen or constituent of a country compared to those who have the most money.
A good question.
I will say, maybe the more we advocate for class consciousness, the more I educate myself on like this paradigm of conflicts between classes of wealth and how to effectively resolve them. Maybe that just naturally leads you down this pathway of becoming just completely radicalized socialists.
No, it doesn't.
I joke and I say like, yeah, I have radical beliefs, but like, I mean, what's the saying?
I'm sorry, that was a play on words. I was joking.
He's not joking though. What do you mean he jokes when he says he definitely thinks he has radical beliefs, right?
No. It's by no measure of
his whole identity is like libs are the status quo. Better to be radical socialists. It's like it's his entire brand
of mental wellness to be well adjusted to a completely insane society. Like, think about it that way, where advocacy for socialized medicine is seen as a bridge too far for many Americans who are so heavily propagated.
What did he just say?
Like, think about it that way, where advocacy for socialized medicine is seen as a bridge too far for many Americans who are so heavily propagandized, no matter how brilliant they fancy themselves to be. The independent thinkers who think that like social medicine means like, oh, we're going to do Venezuela style rat eating in America or whatever the right. So like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's radicalization, more so an evolution by recognizing the understandable contradictions that are baked into capitalism, because capitalism was an advancement from the previous.
Yeah, he's Hasan saying it's just a natural evolution to go from like educating yourself on these paradigms to becoming a socialist. He thinks like his socialist framework is the logical evolution here.
Previous
telling Dean, if you stay studying long enough, you're going to become a socialist.
Mode of commodity production for sure, but most of even what Marx talks about in terms of capitalism is not necessarily, attacking capitalism at all, but instead simply describing capitalism with dialectics, like through the assessment of, and you might think it's a little bit reductive at this point, but like through an assessment of like capital accumulators, the capital owners, the bourgeoisie, and the workers that are wage laborers in general, the proletariat. So that's just, it's more so a description of how things are, and not necessarily like moralizing a certain position that like, workers are always good, or they always do the right things, or anything like that. There's no good bad dynamics there at all, and instead it's just about describing how capital is accumulated.
Dean just got hit with a.
I'm having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, hit with technical.
Got hit with a meteor, dude.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts
I don't
on
understand how glorious Xi Jinping's application TikTok would do this right as I'm talking about abolishing the commodity form.
Oh, he's gone. Good, man.
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming from, and I'm coming from someone who used to be a socialist myself for a pretty long time, and I actually started my whole content creation like creating like leftist and socialist content, is that like a lot of these issues that exist I think can be solved with social democracy. And a lot of people say that there's like issues with social democracy, it starts to corrupt, people start to fight and advocate against it, but I don't think that's a critique against social democracy in of itself. I think that just means that you just need to maintain social democracy in the same type of way like we maintain our democracy.
Base, hello, Base.
I feel like that's kind of
Kid got de-radicalized and saw the light.
He hasn't been tried.
well, I mean, like,
Oh, God.
it means that you just
Did he just say that real socialism has not been tried? Is that what he said?
need to maintain social democracy in the same type of way like we maintain our democracy. I feel like that's kind of,
democracy hasn't been tried.
well, I mean,
A real social democracy hasn't even been tried. I mean, he wouldn't call Sweden a social democracy?
we could say that like we don't think that this real certain form has been tried, and I think that that's cool, but like my argument would then be is that we'd have to try it on smaller levels to be able to see whether or not it works on a larger form in order to be able to say that like it's actually effective. I don't think we'd be able to say that we should adopt it on some sort of globalized production model if it is the case that we don't have any type of level of actual probabilistic means of demonstrating how likely it is that it's going to be beneficial for workers or for people, because we could actually like hurt some
In practice, social democracy involves socially managed welfare capitalism, partial public ownership, economic interventionism, and policies promoting social equality.
concerns like, oh, quality of life for workers, if we don't take that into account when we're like a
New leak, the VA is planning on slashing its workforce by 83,000 nationwide. Jesus fucking Christ. Same with the IRS. I think the IRS are rumored to be facing like 80,000 cuts, whatever.
applying these sorts of systems if we don't know what the empirical effect is of these different types of theoretical models. Not to say that theoretical models can't be then used or seem to be effective later on, but it's like we just need evidence to indicate that these particular models are effective before we establish it on such a pragmatic basis worldwide, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting there anytime soon anyway. I'm not saying like tomorrow with a magic wand, we are going to dissolve the class structure and live in a moneyless class. Like tomorrow with a magic wand,
Shit on such a pragmatic basis worldwide, is what I would say.
yeah, I mean, we're not getting there anytime soon anyway. I'm not saying like tomorrow with a magic wand, we are going to dissolve the class structure and live in a moneyless, classless, stateless society. You know?
Yeah, my thoughts even then were like, would even a stateless society be like desirable in the future? Like even if we hit like full automation. So I don't want to like full on socialist debate you, but like even if we hit full.
No, please do. Please, for the love of God, please debate them. These debates need to happen very publicly.
Automation, like would it even be desirable for us to get rid of that? Like, because we still want a state to like limit people from committing crimes, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a communist, so.
What? I don't know what else I'm supposed to call Hasan when, I mean, he's very explicitly in this conversation advocating for a moneyless, stateless society. He's he thinks that is the desirable outcome. Whatever he says about himself and self-describes, how is that not a communist? What is the nuance that I'm missing here?
I think that, like, I can't even imagine what that would look like in general. But the way I explain it is like, I'm not opposed to it, you know?
I don't know how what context am I missing here? Because he very clearly has indicated at several times in this conversation that would be his preference. And now he's saying, oh, well, my position is, I wouldn't say no if we got there. What's the nuance here?
I wouldn't say I'm a communist, but I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to a stateless, moneyless society, a borderless society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you be against like the enforcement of certain types of laws? Like once we meet that society, I feel like in a communist society, there's no government that would enforce laws against like pedophilia. I feel like that would be true, right?
No, yes, obviously. That's why I'm saying I'm not a communist, but if society evolved in a way where we're talking so far out there. Like, we're now talking about
Yeah.
theoretically what it would look like, right? We're basically fantasizing about a world that is from where I'm standing impossible to imagine. But I think like the argument, I guess, would be that one, obviously most crime in general, with the exception of like antisocial personality disorder related crimes, are like psychopathy or sociopathy, like things like that, crimes born out of crimes that might be born out of like mental problems. And not to say that like people with mental health issues are criminals or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But with the exception of those, like most crime is done because of financial circumstances, like your material conditions create a likelihood for you to go out and do crime. And I think the argument there is that like in that structure, it's already.
There's also a lot of crime pertaining to the greed, right? Like there's a lot of crime from people that are seeking to accumulate more through illegal means.
All of your needs are addressed anyway. So the only remaining crime would possibly be, like you said, pedophilia, which I guess at that stage, medical advancements would have found a solution for that as well. Like I'm assuming that's what it would look like if I were to envision a communist society.
You wouldn't have greedy people in a communist society? Like the concept, the human instinct towards greed would just not exist anymore?
So the concept of crime in and of itself would be entirely destroyed, considering that you're
never going to get rid of things like jealousy and envy. Like that's a universal human characteristic. You're always going to have people that look at other people and want what they want and feel hostile towards them for having what they don't have. And I'm not even talking about just material things. I mean, this goes beyond just material things. We could be talking about like love, having like a love in your life or whatever. But this is something that is just entirely unavoidable in the human consciousness. I don't think human beings are ever going to evolve as a species to the point where, concepts like jealousy don't exist. That just doesn't seem very likely to me at all.
Overwhelming majority of crime is born out of material conditions.
I mean, you can also just appeal to some libertarian enforcement mechanism, right? Don't forget those. Don't forget those collectives, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a libertarian by any means. So, and that's part. Like, I'm a state enjoyer. I often, especially in this past month, I've been talking quite a bit about how we should have 1 million more government employees. I think it's ridiculous that we're trying to cut government employees rather than hire more people for the government. I think that's one of the biggest problems in America is that we don't have enough people doing jobs in general. Any area, like I'll give you the TSA as an example.
Dabsy says, I have devastating news. Okay, what's up? Hit me. The 5090 from Asus is now $3,100. Yeah, I saw, yeah. New $200 increase from the tariffs. Wait, I thought the 5090, I thought the base price was $2,000. But when I looked at like Micro Center to see what kind of inventory they had, all of their 5090s are like 3,000, 3,100. Are those market pressures? Basically zero MSRP models. Sell your Tesla for the 5090. There's almost parity there, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to do the 5090. I've decided I'm not going to do it. I'm still checking the inventory every once in a while, but I'm not going to do it.
I flew into Salt Lake City for the day to shoot a podcast with my co-host, who has escaped to Utah. Okay, and it was annoying. I was waiting in line, and I was waiting in line for an hour. Okay, it sucked. And back in the day, I used to be like, man, these guys suck at their jobs. They're just like sitting around twiddling their thumbs, not doing a good job. Now I'm woke. I realize that it's not because of the individual employee that's like handling this insane amount of demand. It's that somewhere along the line, someone decided that we're going to need to do budget cuts and that we're not going to be able to open up the extra lines, right? Because we don't want to pay for the salaries of additional TSA employees at the time. Same with luggage handlers, right? Like anywhere where you experience as a consumer, anywhere you experience any sort of
We've just heard Hasan so many times say that he viscerally hates liberals. I wish one of them would just ask, like, so do you hate, like, me? I just want to hear that.
Issue, our immediate inclination is that it's actually the fault of the individual workers who are lazy, and that's wrong. That's just simply incorrect. It is directly because companies are corner cutting, cost cutting, and the most malleable aspect of commodity production always is going to be labor. So you cost cut by forcing 4 people to do the job of 8, especially when you can get away with it, especially when conditions have deteriorated and you're fearful that you might lose your job and then lose your house, or not be able to pay rent anymore. The same principle holds for the federal government as well. TSA employees are already technically federal government employees anyway. That's why I use that as an example. Trump cut a bunch of TSA employees as well. I think it was like 300 or something. Really,
Yeah, I like how it's ironic how MAGA says like these criminals are like taking our jobs, but really it's Donald Trump who's the criminal taking our jobs. From federal employees. Kind of crazy shit. That
Hasan's stated position is that libs like all these Gen Z people, like Harry and Matt and Dean Withers here. His stated position, Hasan's, is that libs like these people get in the way of real progress. He's expressed this idea many times. And I wish one of them would interrogate that a little bit. Like, can you explain to me why you think I am like harming you?
That's embarking on. I don't mean to like go into a whole socialism debate with you, but yeah, thanks for answering all my questions. Like, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no problem.
Hasan, I got a question.
All right, let's hear it.
So, it's been funny, okay? So, it's about every like 30 to 45 days, I'll check my Twitter DMs, and I'll see a new DM from you saying, "Pop out to LA and come on the show." And it's just been so funny because it's been happening for like 6 months, and at this point, I think it's hilarious. I don't
Called out.
I'm no.
I told you next time you're in LA, hit me up. But you were like, "Oh, I'll come to LA even just for that alone." I was like,
Yeah,
"Wow,
bro, I'll pop on just for that."
I felt like that was too much pressure. I don't know where you live, but that's like.
And then after this, Dean watched the content nuke, it looks like.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say. But they are a organization. Like they're designated, they are designated by the American state as an organization.
I do not like them then.
Well,
He is regarded as a pretty brilliant person in terms of like everything that he's done.
Then I saw clips like this where Hasan is explaining how he's hiding his power level to funnel in normies into radicalization.
I think that in the short term, in order to combat against that, you have to advocate for a much lighter form of propaganda. One thing you have to do is advocate for a lighter form while simultaneously still doing agitated propaganda that goes beyond social democrats.
It's just, it'll never not be funny to me. It'll never not be funny because ideologically, Hasan has aspirations that tend towards revolution. There's just no getting around it. Like I don't know if his position is that violent revolution is necessary, but he is for sure open to violent revolution. That's, he's very explicit about this. And so like in a revolutionary struggle, there are like different roles, right? And so you need some people that are doing agitative propaganda. Like they're a necessary function of like a burgeoning proletariat, class conscious group of people that are set on upending the established order and, introducing a new paradigm. And it's just funny to me that like, he views his role, it's like, oh, it's my job to do agitative propaganda. That's my role in the revolution. But it's a pretty fucking cushy role he's got, Wow, he really lucked out. His role affords him a life of decadence that 99.99999% of every human that has ever lived, they don't get to experience the kind of luxury that he lives in. Man, when everyone was grabbing straws to figure out what their role was going to be, boy, did he get lucky. Jesus Christ. He gets to take like private jets to Coachella wearing $2,000 outfits. Meanwhile, some kid's getting arrested on campus at UCLA because he shot a fire extinguisher at a cop, but he was, he was doing his job, right? That's his role. His role is to get arrested and have a felony on his record for the rest of his life and, do the firebombing of Walmarts, et cetera, et cetera. And Hasan is out here doing his job, making shitloads of money selling socialist propaganda. It's amazing how lucky he got when they were picking what roles they had.
Idea.
You do your part in the funnel for the cause or whatever the you want to call it. You're doing, in my modest.
Hasan has gone to protests. Have you? I've been to many protests, my friend. I was going to Iraq war protests when you were still a sperm in your daddy's ballsack, okay?
Opinion, a great thing for the cause.
Now listen to Hasan during our very first conversation lie to me about how he's a social democrat to hide his power level.
We should move towards a Sweden-style economy or a Norway-style economy, which would be a social democracy, and protections for workers like higher unionization rates.
Hell, he's proclaimed...
Wait, right there he just said that Sweden is a social democracy, and then the conversation he had with those kids a moment ago, young men, he said that we've never done social democracy. Which one is it? I'm so confused.
Loudly that he is a self-described propagandist.
Yeah, he told me that too when he came on my TikTok live. He was like straight up like W propaganda.
I'm saying I am.
Okay, well then
I'm saying I am.
I just
before
want
you
to
even play it.
A propagandist is much more than someone with a bias. It's someone who knowingly lies to further their political agenda.
Okay, so first, I'm gonna critique.
That's technically not true. Like, again, propagandist in the original inception of that term is a neutral. It doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation. In the modern parlance, propaganda is considered to be deceptive and dishonest in the modern parlance. But in the original inception of the word, it just meant, disseminating information that furthers your ideological goals.
What Hasan just said, as well as I have a critique for Ethan. So first of all, I definitely do think that Hasan being like ultra far left, and then like lying like we saw in that clip about like moving towards a Swedish model, or I guess like I don't know, I'd probably specify like telling half truths. Because I spoke with Hasan. I know that Hasan does think that we need to head towards a type of Swedish social democrat model. And that's as far as we're going to be able to get in like maybe our lifetimes towards socialism. That is true. That is still like coherent and could align with like a socialist worldview because it's just steps in the right direction. But I would say that Hasan would be significantly more based in my mind if he was just like a straight up social democrat, if he didn't think that we need to take it one step further and get rid of like government as a whole. Like that's a little bit too crazy. And I do think that Hasan kind of misrepresenting that a little bit by saying that, he just wants like a social democrat model like we see in like Nordic countries is a misrepresentation. But I don't think that misrepresentation is a big deal at all. I would love for somebody to convince me that is a big deal. In my mind, advocating for progression towards a social democrat model is a good thing.
Well, I mean, what form does his advocacy take? Because, the form it took in the 2024 election cycle, for example, was him just refusing to endorse Kamala to his like massive audience. I don't know what actual advocacy he's doing. Like donating pizza to a picket line is, cool and good. And it's something that I support. But when we just give up on like national electoral politics and refuse to meaningfully engage, then I don't think you're really doing much in service to your goal of moving towards a social democracy.
That's communism? Yeah. Well, he told me and Parker that he wouldn't be opposed to like a stateless, classless, moneyless society. But then Parker was able to drill him down like a minimal government, but he still said that he wanted to be opposed. So I think that from what I've heard, he's kind of like in between that socialists and communists.
I wonder if he's going to react, if he's going to get to the part where Hasan talks about hating liberals. That's where it gets counterproductive. That's where it gets destructive. when you start drawing up these purity tests, and if you don't meet a certain threshold of like adequate radical leftist thought, then you're, you know, basically no different from a reactionary. Liberals like you are worse than conservatives. That's exactly what I'm referring to. Thank you for the perfect example of what I'm talking about. You have very succinctly proven my point in real time, and I appreciate that. You benefited the stream with that.
I actually don't know where he is. But I do think that like kind of like the switcheroo type of technique of telling some people that you want a social democrat while being like communist or socialist, it's kind of weird. You know, stand behind what you want, stand behind what you believe in. But I don't think it's a big deal at all.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like I can have a conversation with a fully committed socialist and not lose my mind. As long as they're like rooted in reality, then they're not offensive to me. Like there's this one young girl, young woman, she's on social media, and I think she used to be a staffer for Elizabeth Warren in 2020 when she was like 17 or 18 years old. I think her name is Kaya or Kara. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? She and a couple of her friends literally like went to a weapons manufacturer, broke through the chains and threw a bunch of Molotov cocktails in the factory and like up its productivity. I'm not suggesting that anybody in the chat go out and do that, but at the very least, I respect that she stood on principle. You know, I may think that that was like a useless thing that she did that didn't really make any difference in the war in Israel, and it just, you know, it's going to land her with a serious felony and jail time. So I might think that that's stupid, but she stood on business. So there is a part of me that's like, you know what? At least you were willing to like risk your personal freedom for what you believe in. You know, that I can respect. I can respect that. That's not what Hasan's doing, right?
I don't think it's a big deal at all. And then also like here with Ethan saying that Hasan, what did he say? There's like that propaganda is like intentionally lying to people. Well, I think that he was able to kind of set the.
I'm just starting the process of turning my little brother away from Hasan. Had to give him the breakdown on all the drama, i.e. genuine criticism he hears. Off to a rocky start. Wish me luck. Oof. Good luck with that one. It's going to be tough, I think. It's a tough job.
That up well by playing the clip of Hasan being like, I want to move towards Sweden and I'm a full-blown propagandist. So then it seems like Hasan is like intentionally lying to people about his like quote unquote power level of how far left he is. And that's why he's a propagandist. But I'm pretty sure when Hasan calls himself a propagandist, he's just being like hyperbolic, and he's basically just stating that he wants to get as many people as possible to believe in what he says by pushing a certain narrative, not by like intentionally lying. Someone in the chat says, Dean, just stop talking. You're going to lose tons of followers. Just stop. Well, I mean, I'm going to speak my mind. I understand that, you know, there's going to be a lot of people watching that love Hasan, people that hate Hasan, etc. I'm going to speak my mind. You know, it's kind of what the entirety of the existence.
Good for you, Dean Withers. Good for you. But apparently he privated his response. Is that true? I don't know anything about this kid. I don't even have TikTok. Did he private his response?
Liberals are some of the easiest to manipulate people on the planet, dude.
What the? What do you mean, Hasan? Okay.
Now you're starting to understand, Dean. Now you're starting to get it. The wheels are starting to turn. Things are kind of clicking into place. Like, wait a second. Did I get hoodwinked?
You too.
Dude, I hate liberals, dude. I do. I hate them. I hate them so viciously.
Oh man. What is that? What? Come on.
Are you getting it now, Dean? Is it starting to make sense?
I'm not half bad, Hasan. That's crazy.
Sorry, dude. I hate liberals so much.
Did this man sit next to me for 2 years and pretend to be my friend?
Dude, liberals are a burden on this planet, dude.
Bad.
Yeah, bro.
Come on.
It's bad. It's bad, Dean.
I'm not a burden on this planet. Come on.
It's bad. It's not good, Dean.
Liberals are the most like scummy, vile.
Jesus Christ.
You're starting to get it, Dean.
Oh my God.
You're starting to get it, Dean.
Are incredibly stupid and hate these petulant liberal, dumb
Jesus Christ.
liberal.
What else is someone this sociopathic capable of?
Liberals are some of the easiest to manipulate people on the planet.
Was I being manipulated this whole time?
Oh my God, I just feel like I just got like, wow, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something just happened to me.
Yeah.
There. What the just happened, man? What was that?
Now you get it.
I kept going.
Now you get it.
Okay. You just kind of kept going there. It just, I've had a guess. It's out of context. It's all out of context. Hasan doesn't hate me. It's out of context. Okay, actually one more thing. I feel like, okay, I'm going to be objective. I actually do feel like Hasan was probably being like hyperbolic with that. Hasan was like probably not telling what he actually thought. The reason why I say that,
there was a time where I had a very similar kind of naivete. Like I would say like decently well educated on leftist like theory and I was like a kind of a big lefty for like a lot of years and not like super well educated. I'm sure there's a lot of socialists in my chat that are going to be like, you probably haven't even read Das Kapital. But I was largely unaware of how much a lot of lefties like hate liberals. It was totally off my radar how like the animosity, because even though I identified as a leftist, I was sympathetic to like socialist thought, like kind of anti-capitalist broadly for, bulk of my 20s. I always like when it came time for elections to come around, I was always like, well, of course I'm going to vote Democrat. I mean, it's the obvious choice. I never had that animosity towards people that like that had much kind of more revolutionary kind of thoughts. And then it was during the Trump era that I started to notice it. And then I started to notice it like in my own chat, like people were using lib as an insult. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? This is an insult? And I think like maybe I went along with it for a little bit because I felt like a social pressure a little bit. Like, I think I remember saying like, I'm not a lib, I'm a social democrat. I remember feeling like a little bit of pressure. And then that animosity really became obvious starting in 2020, and then during the Biden era, I was like, oh, these people literally hate liberals. Now I'm not talking about all socialists, right? But there's a brand of socialists where they just like Mike from PA is a really good example, and reformed Republican who became a tanky. If you search the term liberal in Mike from PA's Twitter feed, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like that, there are these people loathe people like Dean or like David Pakman. They hate David Pakman. David Pakman, like the most anodyne, uncontroversial, progressive liberal online. Just like no baggage. Seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulders, very well informed, and they hate him. And Dean, it seems he's now starting to understand, like, wait a second. He's talking about me. Does he think I'm easy to manipulate? Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
That is because Hasan has been kind to me. I'm a liberal. Even like off stream, he's been
kind to you because he's clout hungry, and he'll figure that out too. Like, this kid is he's still kind of relatively new in the space, and he seems to have blown up like decently fast. And he'll figure out over time that when you get popular on the internet, all of a sudden, like, a lot of people want to be your friend. But these are not people that are like actual friends. These are not people that, would reach out to you when you're at a low point or when they're at a low point to like ask for support. Like, it's just a purely transactional relationship. And he'll figure that out. Like, the longer he stays in this space and the more people try to suck up to him and cozy up to him, to try to leech some of his audience, then he'll realize like what that's all about.
He's been kind to me. So if Hasan like genuinely did hate and despise, he's kind to you because he wants your audience.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it's like
yes.
That's like a way to look at the picture.
Yeah.
So what? So okay.
That's what's happening.
It's,
yeah.
We're gonna see about a 50. Okay. So there's two possibilities that either Hasan is literally grooming me.
Yes.
And those clips weren't out of context.
Yes. Yes.
Or like I guess maybe like you wouldn't even need context, and there's just something hyperbolic or false about what he was saying. Rewind 5 seconds. Okay, that's what he said. So I guess the question now is, was I getting groomed by Hasan?
Yeah. You can see it's kind of sad. Like you can see the wheels kind of spinning in real time. Like, wait a second. Wait just a goddamn second. Did I get swindled? You know, you can see it. You can see the gears turning.
Bro, can somebody like download this and edit all of like the parts of Ethan talking out? Like I would much prefer to be watching a video where I'm just like watching clips of Hasan. Like Ethan's commentary is just like unnecessary for me. You know what I mean? Okay. I'll get my take on.
So this is the October 7th stuff. The resistance isn't perfect.
So labeling like
careful, don't. Oh boy, he's about to touch the Israel stuff. Oh boy, that is a white hot ember. Careful now. They will annihilate you if you say the wrong thing here.
Hamas, like freedom fighters, and kind of like being okay and like kind of explaining away some of the bad things that Hamas has done by saying the resistance isn't perfect. I disagree with that. I do disagree with that. I think that it is so totally fine to condemn Hamas while condemning Israel, the state of Israel, the leadership of Israel, and every single IDF soldier. And in fact, I actually think that that is a better position because it's more likely to be adopted by a broader audience. You're not going to be able to convince that many people that they should hold this conception of the pro-Palestinian view that would include acceptance of Hamas through rhetoric like it's not perfect, but they're freedom fighters. I feel as if you could hold a significantly better position that is much more consumable by so many more people by condemning Hamas.
Yes! Yes! For sake. Not complicated. It's not difficult. I was saying that for like 10 goddamn months, constantly arguing with people in my own chat.
While simultaneously accepting that innocent humans are dying and Palestine needs to be freed, and the state of Israel is committing ethnic cleansing and war crimes. So I can say I do disagree with that rhetoric.
Oh, I almost forgot the most fun one. They brought back slavery.
We think the Houthis, Ansar Allah, is doing what Luffy would do.
That lines up with leftist values. All right, so these...
Okay, yeah, if Hezbollah brought back slavery and he's defending Hezbollah, what the hell? Terrible position.
Guys are clearly the bad guys. So my question is...
Yeah, sure. Anybody that brings back slavery is clearly the bad guys. Yeah. But I know nothing about the Houthis.
Did you know that we have legalized slavery in the United States because of the 13th Amendment? Somebody's already queuing that one in the chat right now.
So I'm actually going to predicate that on an if-then conditional. If they brought back slavery, then they're the bad guys because slavery is bad.
Oh, you want to see a Houthi musical?
Sure.
These were the people that the Saudis were, by the way, just so you know. These musically gifted.
Okay. So insofar as all the content that would surround Hasan and his takes and considerations concerning the Houthis, I don't know anything about the Houthis. That is one global subject that I'm just simply not educated on at all.
It's not great, Dean. I'm gonna level with you. It's not great.
Feel free to scrutinize me for not educating myself on that. But I hope that you won't scrutinize me for not educating myself on that prior, because I will now. But I will say that it is important for me to understand what who the Houthis are prior to making a determination if Hasan's statements concerning them are justified? Do you look into them? Okay, yeah. If they're playing like a video from the Houthis, and the Houthis is considered like a terrorist group in America, and Hasan's not present, that's pretty negligent.
So let's review his claims. His first claim is that the boat is headed for Israel. It's not. It's going from Turkey to India. Next claim is that it's owned by an Israeli company. It's not. It's being chartered by a Japanese company, and the boat's owners are registered in the Isle of Man. I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that...
Okay, that's really bad. If that's true, that is really bad.
This whole thing is so goddamn funny.
True, that's pretty bad. Like I said before, that
that does not sound very tight.
is wild. Like, hopefully there's not a defense to that, right? Does Hasan, like, I mean, I don't know if he's talked about this at all, but if he has talked about
Oh dear. Oh, Dean.
is he gonna like own up and be like,
Oh, Dean, you sweet summer child.
that's crazy? Does he like admit that he shouldn't have done that? Somebody says L take. I mean, I don't feel like that's an L take. Like, watch Hasan's. Okay, so Hasan does have a response to this, or Hasan doesn't have a response to this. If you're going to play like a video,
Propaganda.
an organization that America considers to be, I feel like the least you could do is at least be there to see what is said. So for all of these conversations surrounding the Houthis, because I don't know who the Houthis are, I will like seriously just like have to hold off on like most opinions. Of course, like there's like some opinions I can like form without knowing who they are. Like just knowing the base facts that the US considers them a organization, and that like Hasan like left the room while playing one of the videos. Like that's condemnable without knowing anything about the Houthis, just because of the pure negligence alone. But for like a lot of the other stuff, I have to know more.
Now we come to our sweet, beautiful, cute little TikTok twink. This hairless young man is...
Bro, dude. Okay. I don't think that it's okay to like call people twinks.
Come on. That was funny.
Like
Come on. That was objectively funny.
I cringe really hard.
We're big fans of the Yemeni music videos. You can tell them that. I want to ask him about the knife. The knives are sick. What's up with the knives? You know, the curved knives.
If one of those knives comes out in front of you, it's not going back until it has blood on it.
Oh, okay. My bad. Well, I mean, I think it's cool, though.
Oh my God, this video is straight comedy.
So far, what I've gathered is a couple things. So first and foremost, what came before we got on to like Hasan supporting the Houthis? Because I feel like there's some more valuable. Okay, yes. So him like on liberals. I think that was like antisocial is kind of like weird, honestly. Like that was odd. Now like I'm curious in learning like the framing of the statements, and like I definitely think it's just like weird for somebody to be like, I hate liberals. They're all so stupid, scum of the earth. I hate them all. Like I guess like just like the default on libs is a little antisocial. Now like if I had to guess, he was probably.
I think it comes from like I think there's something about like that kind of leftism. I want to be careful and not generalize too much here, because I have met and interacted with many leftists that don't do this stupid shit. So that out of the way, I think there's something about like that brand of that like kind of extremist, standoffish version of leftism. There's something about that attracts a particular kind of person who takes comfort in feeling like a bit of an outcast. Like there are some people, it's like, you know, it's like punk rockers, right? Like there are some people who take comfort and feel better about themselves in the context of being of rebelling against the status quo. Like 75% of teenagers go through this kind of phase at some point where they feel like they want to distinguish themselves. It takes many forms. You can find it in right-wing circles as well. What the do you think Andrew Tate's talking about with like escaping the matrix? It's like that, but in the inverse, right? There's this sense of superiority. If it's like, is it moral superiority? There's like a sense of like moral superiority that people feel in contrast to what they perceive to be the status quo or systems of control or whatever. And so leftism, this brand of leftism is all about like, I'm not a liberal. I'm on the left, but I'm not a liberal. I'm way more advanced than that. So it's like, there's this need to distinguish themselves as being just much more evolved than like milquetoast libs or whatever. And so it attracts like a particularly annoying, contrarian type of crowd. That's my read on things.
On the libs, because of like the institutional democratic support for Israel. If I had to guess the context, it would probably be something surrounding that.
No, this predates the Israel conflict, just to be clear. It's the same mindset as conspiracy theorists. They take comfort from being in the know. Exactly. It's adjacent to that. Yeah.
Now, like, I can agree. I very vehemently disagree with like the institutional democratic support for Israel. And, you know, a lot of the propagated, you know, semblance that we see in that in a lot of liberals, where liberals will support Israel. But like, obviously I'm a liberal that doesn't support Israel. I know many other liberals that don't support Israel. And when you just kind of say all liberals,
Dean's just wrong. He's like, he seems to be postulating, or he seems to be presenting this possibility that most of Hasan's animus towards liberals is because of the Israel stuff, but his animus towards liberals well predates October 7th and the subsequent conflict. He's been doing this song and dance about liberals for years. He was doing it back in 2020.
It doesn't leave room for that nuance. And I disagree. But obviously I don't know the context. But I just, yeah, I that kind of, wait, he's saying leftists over liberals and he's right? Okay, well, I understand if you hold like a leftist position, you're going to think that socialism or communism is better than than a social democracy. And I obviously don't mind somebody holding that position. Like, diversity of thought exists for a reason. Debate exists for a reason. You know, we're supposed to be able to intelligently converse about these things. And obviously it's going to be a given that if we disagree on something, you're going to think I'm wrong. That's entailed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that implies that you should hate me for some beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think obviously some disagreements can entail hate justifiably.
Nazis.
But I don't think like a disagreement between a social democracy and socialism
No.
Should entail hate.
It shouldn't bring about this much animosity. Like, if you're a leftist and you can't recognize the potential value of forming a coalition with progressive liberals or even center left liberals, then your movement is doomed to irrelevancy forever.
I obviously disagree with that. To be fair, neolibs, pretty cringe. Well, you didn't say neolibs. You just said all liberals.
Yeah.
Wait, about how you hear Ethan talk to various groups? I don't give a shit about Ethan. I'll condemn him if he's done anything bad. And when I say I don't give a shit about Ethan, I literally mean I don't care about him. I'm here to learn from Hasan and what he has said and my reaction to it. And honestly, if there was a second version of this that just didn't include anything about Ethan, that'd be awesome. You know what I mean? I've never watched Ethan's content, just somebody else on the internet. And the only reason I state it like that is because, you know, I've seen a lot of people being like, oh, if you disagree with Ethan on this one thing, with Hasan on this one thing, that means that you support Ethan. Or, oh, look at what Hasan said. Well, Ethan did worse. Okay, if Ethan did worse, he deserves to be held accountable. If Ethan's done bad things, Ethan deserves to be held accountable. But I'm by no means like a fan of Ethan, nor have I ever watched his content, apart from literally this video.
The execution we will carry out on all Zionists, with the lovely depiction of a man impaled through his ass. hole and out of his mouth with a pike, or how Hasan likes to say it, a pike for a cut. Okay, why would he retweet this article called Houthis Use Social Media to Boost Global Prominence and Support? Israel falls. Wait for the new operation in Tel Aviv.
That's crazy. How do you feel about that?
Oh man.
Like calling for like the public execution via
this reaction is amazing content. Like this whole video has been so funny to me. This is amazing content.
like wooden rod through body for all Zionists. Because see, me personally, I disagree with that. Okay?
Oh
Now,
no.
For like individuals carrying out war crimes and innocent people.
For me personally, I'm opposed to wooden stakes being inserted into people's rectum. That's just me personally. I just want to make that clear. Broadly against impaling people through the rectum with wooden pikes. That out of the way, then we get into the nuance.
Solitary confinement for the rest of their life. And if they die while they're trying to kill people, I will not give a single, not a single.
Who's he even talking about?
But calling for like the deaths of all Zionists.
Talking about IDF soldiers or something?
I do disagree with that. I think that's pretty gross. Then again, like I don't support the death. It's very rare that I support the death penalty. And Hasan had this guy on his stream. Hasan had this guy on his stream, and this guy is just like calling for like mass death and called him Luffy. Is there a defense to that? Like, I think that
the Hasan defense is that you have to consider the material conditions that this teenager has endured living in Yemen in a constant state of war that is just, you know, like, and famine and mass death. And, you know, and to a certain extent, like, I understand that argument. Like, I think we should consider, like, I don't consider someone who joins the Houthis or Hamas or Hezbollah, I don't think it's because these people are inherently evil. So I don't even think it's wrong about that kind of analysis. I think that's fine. That's fine. But at the same time, you know, don't glorify it. Certainly don't glorify it. Certainly don't, you know, celebrate it as a like valid form of resistance. Because at that point, you're aligning yourself with an ideology that is rooted in a fundamentalist, literalist interpretation of Islam that is enormously oppressive. If you find yourself as a leftist aligning with that kind of group purely because they are the resistance to the Israeli apartheid state or whatever you want to call it, then I think you've kind of lost the plot. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, you can acknowledge, like, it's like what Dean said a few minutes ago. You can acknowledge where Israel does wrong. And at the same time, also acknowledge that, boy, it would sure be horrible for everybody in that region if, like, Hamas took over. Jesus Christ, that would be terrible. What a horrible outcome that would be. Instead of doing that, you're hand waving that and saying, well, you know, the resistance isn't perfect. Well, that's one way of putting it, you know.
Bro, he's a kid in Yemen. You want him to love Israel? No. Why? Okay, what is going on with, like...
What a wild straw man. What a wild thing to accuse Dean of saying.
The, like, false equivocations in the chat insofar as, like, how...
This is what I'm saying. Like when you get trapped into this militant leftist view of things, your brain, it's very binary, right? Like, you're either on the wrong side or you're on the right side. And Israel is definitely the wrong side. So Hamas has to be the right side. Even if it does some things that I don't agree with, they're in perfect resistance. So they're, kind of on the right side. And Israel's on the wrong side. And there's no space for you to think like, okay, this is really complicated and I kind of don't like any of these sides. It's like as if you were to say something like that. I think the fear is if you say something like that, then people are going to think that you're like caping for Israel. But why would they think that if they're a reasonable person? If they're a reasonable person, why would they assume that you're like trying to excuse everything that Israel does by acknowledging that Hamas and like the Houthis suck? These things are not incompatible. It's not mutually exclusive. You can hold both of those in your brain at the same time. And that's where I think a lot of like lefties just to get lost in the sauce, right? And they want to like, they like, the Houthis based, people like in Hasan's chat, you can see it. Like people are like, based. Nasrallah based, based. Why do I think Nasrallah is based? Well, he's very well read.
I feel from so many people. He's living through a genocide. Yes, I agree. A kid. Yeah, I think like in that circumstance, like I can like put my shoes in the perspective of an individual that is like literally living through a genocide.
Right, and that allows you to understand how someone in that spot could be manipulated by an organization that gives that kid a sense of identity and gives that kid a sense of empowerment. So somebody like a Houthi comes to recruit you and validates your pain. You should not be enduring this famine. You should not be enduring this war. You should not be enduring these bombs. And then gives you a clear bad guy and then says, you join us and we're going to fight against that. And then, okay, that sounds great, but it comes with all this other shit. All this like radical Islamism. It comes with all that. And so like in that spot, I don't feel my anger is not directed towards the kid in that spot. Though I don't think we should be glorifying what the kid is saying, like the rhetoric, whatever. My anger is directed at like the Houthis, like the people in the leadership position that manipulate kids into this insane ideology.
Living through an ethnic cleansing that is also young and like understand like where like those radical beliefs are going to come from. Okay? Like descriptively speaking, I could
they aren't manipulated. They are just in their resistance. You as a white man have no spot in the discussion. So you don't think it's manipulating to tell a kid that's like 19 years old that if he dies in service to Islam and the struggle against the Jews, that he will be rewarded by like dozens of virgins in heaven? You don't think that's manipulating? I mean, listen, I hold the view that like all religion is manipulative to one degree or another, but there are more extreme examples, i.e. the Houthis, right?
See how like living through particular living conditions lead to radical beliefs. But I don't think that means I have to accept the radical beliefs, and it certainly does not justify them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think it should be normalized either.
Yeah.
Here,
yeah,
I don't, so insofar as like the equivocation between a Jewish individual and a Zionist, I mean, I've always like categorically separated like Jewish individuals from Zionists.
Not everybody does.
And I would say that
the Houthis don't.
I mean, of course, I don't know who this guy is, but like from what I've seen on screen, like Ethan being like, oh, it's obviously just a case that he wants to kill all Jewish people. I see that equivocation made
no, but he literally tweets out like, he tweets out about Jews, not Zionists.
Often, especially like I've even had that equivocation made to me by so many people. Like I've been called anti-Semitic for disagreeing with Zionism. It's called context. Yeah.
Isn't the Houthi flag? What does the Houthi flag say again? Allah is great. Death to America. Death to Israel. A curse upon the Jews. Victory to Islam. It's not a curse upon the Zionists, to be clear.
Is there context that would demonstrate that this guy, when referencing Zionism, is just like seriously just referencing Jewish individuals.
Well, he explicitly references Jewish people broadly. That's why.
And maybe that context would be like lie a little bit deeper insofar as, yeah, he has. Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I would honestly here, what I would say would be like the best thing for Ethan, like what he should have done instead, like maybe to people that are not involved and educated on these things, to like lay out the reasons why. And then on top of that, make an argument that even if he wasn't referencing all Jewish individuals, like still yet calling for the public execution of all like Zionist individuals is unjustifiable as well. He did it right before. Okay, if he did, I'm sorry. What
the f am I looking at? Was this in the original video here? Oh, Ethan added this. Okay, yeah.
You showed it 30 seconds before. Okay, well, that's my bad. Holy shit, man. It's like everything that I said, every comment that I made.
Now I'm remembering because we did watch that video, yeah.
Half of the chat was like, W take. The other half of the chat was like, you're a piece of shit. I think where I stand.
Welcome to the discourse on Israel. Nobody gets out alive. Nobody gets out with clean hands, okay?
Somebody said nice farming. I was getting more views earlier when I was debating. What the f do you mean nice farming? Be real. Here are some of my takeaways from some of the things in which we've just observed there. So first and foremost, Hasan's statements towards liberals, antisocial and weird. But like, honestly, do I think that should end Hasan's career? No.
Well,
but
I don't know.
I would
who's
like
saying that?
Hasan update that position because it is bad, as well as it alienates a lot of people on the left from.
Dean, he's not going to update that position. It's a foundational belief that he has. That, you know, when he says scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds, he means that shit. He thinks that liberals are closer to fascists than they are to like progressives and socialists.
Growing in a more from a more progressive direction.
That's not going to happen, Dean.
I think like when you like
Dean, you sweet summer child, that is not going to happen.
Call all liberals like stupid, dumb, and you like advocate for hate. Well, then all of a sudden you are isolating from drawing liberals further to the left.
That's the point. They don't care about building their movement. It's about feeling superior.
And if your goal as a leftist is to draw more people further to the left, alienating a group of people that, you know, some of which has good intentions and believes that what is best for humanity.
Now you're getting it.
Away from your bubble is antithetical to what you'd want to do in that position.
Yeah. You've just exposed the fundamental incoherence of that kind of leftist. That he just hit the nail right on the head there. Like, wait, why would you use language like that? Because you're just going to alienate people that should be your allies. That's the big critique of Hasan's brand of leftism. The point is not to create a political movement that can be a vehicle for actual change. That's not the point. The point is to build a niche community whose identity is rooted in being outsiders. They don't want political power. That's not the point. It's not the point. It's just a big old massive circle jerk about how they're smarter and better read and more moral than milquetoast libs who are really not that much different from fascists. That's the whole movement. There, I've just summed it up for you. That's what it's all about.